Chapter 9, Trip to St Halb. I was already at the rear of the hotel and dealt with the light by pulling the fishing line I placed in the socket several days ago, and the backyard was now in pitch darkness. Simon and George entered the yard and picked up their burgans.
Steve is over near the fence, better join him.
Morning, gents, you retrieved the passport copies?
Yep, all tucked right here.
As Simon tapped his jacket pocket. Our security guard, friend?
Placed enough sleeping juice in his coffee to knock out a rhino. He will not be disturbing us anytime soon,
says George. Right, let's go. As discussed, I will leave first, followed by Simon, then George taking up the rear. The rendezvous point is where the road enters the forest. Once we've all arrived, I will lead us to the night RV I prepared yesterday. Any questions? No? Good, let us make a move. Perfect. The back street was in complete darkness, apart from a light coming from one of the windows at the far end. This should not be an issue as it was high up, and unless they were looking down, they wouldn't spot us passing by. Once I reached the junction, took time to stop and listen to what was going on. All quiet, so bent down before looking around the corner of the building. Seen too many people being killed because they put their heads around the corner at head height, where someone had a rifle aimed. Once I confirmed the situation was safe to move, turned left and headed towards the road leading to the forest. Always great working with professionals like Simon and George without any words being spoken. They had spaced themselves out with a 50-meter gap between us. All went without a hitch until we came to the open ground where we had our meeting yesterday again. I took time to stop and listen to my surroundings. This time a group of young men were sat on the mound drinking and talking noisily to each other. Signaled for Simon to close up, took out my 9mm and headed across the 100-meter or so while Simon covered me once across without being seen. George would move up and cover Simon while I observed the road in the direction we had come. Took about another 20 minutes to reach the edge of the forest, again without a word being spoken. We fanned out, taking up position facing toward the way we had come, in case someone had followed us. Wasn't expecting one too, but better to be safe than sorry. A short time later, sure no one had tailed us, I whispered to each of the boys, in turn. Follow me to the rendezvous point and walk where I do due to the punji trap I laid earlier. Once we were all past, placed the tripwire across the track, we continued the last 50 meters to the RV. Nothing fancy, just enough to give us cover and protection for the next 3 hours. Once in, we took up positions, with each of us facing with different orientations. Positioned myself, pointing the way we had come. George was covering up the track in the direction of the port, which left Simon looking down the path towards the town. To keep noise to a minimum, everyone was in such a position they could be tapped by the foot of each other. We would be taking it in turns to stag on for an hour. At least the sky was clear with no chance of rain, plus with the warm heat of the tropics meant it would be a comfortable stay. Nothing like the ambush in Northern Ireland laid in a hedgerow for 4 days, where it pissed it down the majority of the time we were there. Waterproofs of the time were not as good as you can buy them now. They made a noise when you moved, so not worn. What annoyed me as much as the rain was the fact the patrol commander decided this would be a good time for a kip. Left me to make the decision when to bring down fire. Mind you, there is always a silver lining. Now there are several members of the terrorist organization won't be bothering anyone anymore. Took first stag, which was uneventful with the usual sights and sounds of a rainforest at night. Surprising how the brain plays tricks on you in these situations. You would be amazed at how many things you see which are not really their case of training the mind to filter them out. Gave Simon's right leg a hard kick to wake him up, as he was on stag next. Was no need to pass him the receiver from the tripwire as we all had receivers and earpieces. Ensured Simon was totally awake and checking the ground down the track. Then, after a quick glance over to George, who was sound asleep, settled down to try to for some shut-eye. Felt like I had been sleeping for seconds when I received 2 hard kicks from Simon. Shit, 2 boots meant someone was approaching. Looked over to where Simon was. He was pointing towards the track leading from town. Gave him the thumbs up to confirm I understood what was going on. Already alert, George was looking in the opposite direction to ensure we were not being circled. The noise of the alarm from the tripwire was ringing loudly in my ears. Enormous scream of excruciating pain came from where the tripwire was set. Shit, someone had not only tripped the signal but had found my punji trap. George and I immediately launched towards him to shut the fucker up. Being the first to reach him, I grab him in a headlock with one hand over his mouth to cut out the noise. George was close behind and sat on him to enable a better grip of his now flailing arms.
Right, my friend, when my buddy here moves his hand from your mouth, I want you to stay quiet, and we are not going to hurt you unless you scream again. Do you understand me?
The man shook his head to confirm he understood what we just said. Right, a few questions, and don't lie to me, or I will stick the nails through your other foot. I say as the man nods again to show he understood. Don't really care who you are. Why are you here? Are there any more of you around? Releasing my grip over his mouth slightly, giving him the ability to talk.
Work for Edward. He knows you would be heading for the port at some time, so he had us keep surveillance on the hotel during the day and the road from town once it had become dark, in case you left on foot. One of us saw you pass the open ground on the way, so I was sent ahead to find out which way you went. I'm on my own, please don't kill me.
Nobody is going to hurt you. In fact, the complete opposite. My friend here is going to give you something to take away the pain from your leg.
Says George looking straight at me. No words were needed. I placed my free arm around the back of his head, ensuring the arm went entirely around the man's throat. Resting my hand on the other elbow, I squeezed as hard as possible while making a jerking motion, snapping his neck. Kept the lock in place until I was sure he was dead. Help me drag his body under that bush. Better check his pockets while we're here as well, George.
Good idea.
Anything unusual?
There wasn't much in his wallet apart from a few dollars and some bank cards. In his back pocket was something fascinating, an envelope with a blue stripe.
George says, handing me the envelope. These are appearing far too often, George. After collecting the transmitter from the tripwire, went back to where Simon was still covering towards the direction of town in case any of the man's friends turned up, and they would. Let's not hang around waiting, gents, let's bug out and head for the port. We have enough darkness to cover our movements. Led off first with George bringing up the rear, spacing ourselves out enough so you could see the person in front and behind. Had about 2 kilometers to go through the forest before hitting the open ground between it and the port. The journey through the woods was straightforward, due to the fact I had checked the route several days ago and because now, thanks to no artificial lights, we all had our night vision. You would be surprised how much you can see at night once your eyes have come accustomed. Using a trick picked up while driving armored vehicles through the forests of Germany in the blackness of the night, with the only light being that of a tiny convoy light of the APC in front to guide you, the skill was to look up and line up between the trees, navigating your way by following the gap down towards the track. Wasn't long before I came to the edge of the forest, stopping around 50 meters short. No way I was going to just walk out from the woods, seeing too many of my colleagues killed that way. Signaled for Simon and George to close up. Once they had reached my location, we entered the trees at right angles to the track. Then moving forward, using the available cover and stopping just inside the edge, watched for any movement in the ground to our front. The area appeared clear, with no vehicles or people coming down the road towards us. Now we had 2 options, stay off the road and head cross-country or use the tarmac, which would be quicker, but risk being spotted. Time was getting on, and needed to be near to the location of Derek's boat at least an hour before sunrise. It was agreed we take our chances down the ladder. Been traveling for about 30 minutes when a set of car headlights appeared in the distance. No need to act now, need to keep an eye on the direction it was driving. Seemed to be looking for someone, as every couple of minutes, it would stop for a while before moving off. Maybe they were looking for their friend, who was now providing food for the numerous insects that frequent the undergrowth in the woods, or even us. Had walked for about a kilometer when the car headed straight for us. Automatically took up cover in the ditch to the left of the road. Simon and George followed suit. The vehicle stopped about 200 meters from our location for about 5 minutes before speeding off in the direction of town. This had cost us precious time. We now needed to pick up the pace if we were going to arrive at the harbor in time. Approached the dock just as the first rays of the morning light started to appear over the horizon. Estimated we only had around 40 minutes until sunrise. The port was still empty of people, apart from a couple of men setting off in an old fishing boat and heading out to sea. In the distance spotted Derek's boat at the end of the pier. Here's the plan, boys. Simon, if you proceed to the dock that runs parallel to the one Derek's boat is on and take up a position overlooking this area. I pointed towards the other pier. Take up a position at the end of the dock. George, while you're there, check our friend Tony is still where he is supposed to be. We'll make my way along the dock and wait for Derek to appear. Not that we don't trust Derek, but someone could have overheard our conversation in the restaurant. Plus, as we now know, Edward's mob know we are heading for the port at some stage. Best stand off for a while. Once I start talking to Derek at the boat, give it 10 minutes or so, and then if all coast is clear, join us, ready for the off. Smack on first light, Derek arrived at the boat, watched as he climbed on board and started preparing for the trip. Waited for a couple of minutes to ensure he was alone before joining him on deck.
Hi, Steve, where are Simon and George?
Says Derek looking up and down the pier. Around. They will join us soon. Everything ready for the trip?
Yes, all fueled up, and the weather is good, waiting for you to give the word.
At this point, George appeared walking down the dock. At the same instant, Simon climbed on board from the seaward side. What the fuck, Simon, how did you? I was cut short.
Walk on water, mate, or I may have borrowed that little dinghy down there.
Smart arse. Right, let's get this mission underway. Ready when you are, Derek. How long do you think it will take us to reach St Halb?
With this weather, we should arrive at the island in about 1.5 hours.
Perfect. Simon, could you call Sam and let him know our ETA and pickup location?
No problem. Give us a few minutes.
Must have only been traveling a couple of minutes when a loud explosion was heard from the direction of the pier.
From the sound of that, our friend Tony has finally gone to pieces.
Think you may be right, George. He will not be bothering anyone anytime soon. Any luck with Sam, Simon?
We'll be at the RV ready with the Land Rover when we arrive.
Okay there, George. You're starting to look a little green around the gills.
You three maybe wannabe sailors, but there's a reason I joined the army, not the fucking Navy. I suffer from seasickness.
No problem, George. Me and Simon will only hold this against you for the rest of your life.
Bastards.
That's what mates are for, George. Fancy a brew, anyone? I'm putting the kettle on. So, 2 NATO standards. How do you like your drink, Derek?
White with 2 sugars, please.
3 NATO standards coming up. Of course, I'm sweet enough, so no sugar for me.
Who are you trying to kid, fat boy?
Must be. My mum told me.
Yeah, and the Pope's a Jew.
Not far to go, gents. You can see the island appearing over the horizon at 12 o'clock.
Says Derek, pointing over the bow of the boat. Okay, time to ditch the mobile phones we've been using in St. Bethany, and bed sheets. Ensuring he wrote down Sam's number before taking out the SIM card, Simon tossed them over the side. George and I copied suit and confirmed we removed the SIM card before launching it overboard. Ensured we left a 100-meter gap between them before doing the same with the phones. With technology these days, you can never be too careful. Someone could have cloned the smartphones or SIM card and added a tracker. Reached into my Bergen and pulled out the 3 new mobiles I had purchased on St. Bethany. I hadn't put the SIM cards in yet to switch them on. We would not be doing this until we reached St. Halb and made contact with Sam. Derek called out.
Gents, best you all move inside and stay out of view if possible. A boat is heading towards us at high speed. Seems to be the local police. They may have been informed of the explosion at the pier.
They say the ideal place to hide is in view of everyone. But let's not make it easy for them, as we have gone out of our way to keep our identities under wraps. Simon concealed himself in the forward cabin while George and I sat in the wheelhouse, but hiding from anyone giving a cautionary glance in our direction. To make the scene more plausible, we both started handling the equipment. Derek kept up the pretense that we were all on a fishing trip. Once the police launch pulled alongside, Derek called out.
Hello, officers. Can I be of any assistance this fine morning?
We're looking for a group of 5 men who may be heading this way from St. Bethany.
Thank fuck, someone can't count.
Any reason, officer? I left around 4 o'clock and have not seen anyone in my vicinity.
Derek said. keeping them in conversation. A complete lie, but hey, they didn't need to know the truth. The boat tilted to the right when one of the officers transferred from the police launch to our vessel.
Mind if I take a quick look around?
Not at all.
The policeman was about to enter the cabin via the door when a shout came from his colleague.
Bob, leave it. A boat has been spotted to the north of the island. We need to go.
Shit, that was close. Derek, well played, mate. I say, rejoining Derek outside. While on the phone, Simon had arranged for Sam to meet us at a small sandy beach to the right of the port, which had a secluded inlet, ideal for us. When we arrived, Sam is standing on the shore next to a battered-looking Land Rover with no roof. Fantastic news, he was here. Throw the anchor over the side, and let's park for a while. Just before you leave, Derek, let us go over the plan for your part if everyone could gather around the map. Your primary task, mate, is to ensure you and the boat are located in this area at 7 o'clock on the 7th day. With today being the first day, let's synchronize our timepieces. In 3, 2, 1, the time now is 9:30.
No problem. We'll see you at 7 o'clock, 7 days from now.
Time to introduce ourselves.
Sam, I'm Simon. We spoke on the phone. That over there is George, and this fat, ugly bastard is Steve.
Nice to meet you all. I suggest we climb on board the Land Rover and head back to my place. Abby is there waiting for us all. Once we are there, we can fill you in on what's been happening.